Hi, everybody. So some of you might have come to one of our webinars before. So Cambridge Wireless have been really kind in inviting us to do quite a few over the last few months. So we've done things like how to look good on camera. I've done some social media things, and today we're going to be talking about Google Ads. So the lovely people at Cambridge Wireless, Simon normally does the intro, and he can't make it today. Perhaps he's gone to Newmarket to not watch the races. So just to run through a couple of things. I mean, we've been members of Cambridge Wireless for a couple of years now, and if you're not a member, it's a fantastic organisation to join. The kind of events that they've had on over the last few months have been wonderful, and the things that you have in real life. I just always meet so many interesting people, you know, and Cambridge is such so fertile for tech and life sciences and all these things. So you always have some wonderful conversations with people when you go to their events. So a new thing as well. So webinars like this and other things they're running, it's all going to be part of CPD. So you can get CPD points just for attending today, which is really nice. And they also have a thing coming up. Can I have the next slide, please, Professor Chris Whitty? So the Tech for Santa webinar, 17th of December at 1 o'clock. And cost is £10, and this is going to be lots of fun by the looks of things, and all the proceeds will go to Ely Food Bank. So do come along to that. Sophie and the Cambridge Wireless team are going to send around some information after this event, so you'll find out about that, get the link again so you can join, and also information about the CPD points. And then one last thing, next slide, please, Clark. We always find, because we used to go to lots of networking ourselves, we speak at events, we're always out and about sharing our expertise. And one thing we found quite quickly when we started to do the webinars, do it remotely, is that we missed out on all of those opportunities for a glass of wine and a nibble, and for people to come and ask us a little bit more about what we were talking about. So all of those kind of niggly specific questions that you don't want to ask in front of a large audience. So whenever we do these webinars, then we always have this thing afterwards. If you go to sookio.com/chat, then you can book in time with Clark and you can ask him all the nerdy questions that you might want to ask about Google Ads, because today is very much a beginner's guide. So there might be stuff that you want to explore in depth. So if you go to sookio.com/chat, then you can book yourself into his diary. Yeah, so that's all from me on the Sookio and Cambridge Wireless front. So I'll pass over to you now, Clark, and you can hit the ground running.
Thank you very much, Sue. My name is Clark. I work with Sue, and my job is a digital strategist. So I am responsible for working with organisations to basically build out their online marketing over sort of a couple of years, and really think strategically. And one of my sort of specialist areas is around paid content and paid ads, and obviously Google Ads. So that's me in terms of what I do and working at Sookio. Today I'm going to be basically running through from an oversight of what Google Ads is, to give you an understanding of, if you were to run your first campaign, what things would I need? What things would I need to know? What it's not, I'm not going to be screen sharing specific parts within the Google Ads system itself, because it can get very complicated. And I could spend hours just on each one of these sections doing that. So this is very much an overview and just a kind of point of, okay, if I'm going to start, I'm thinking about going to Google Ads, what do I actually need? So we'll be covering today audience, thinking about how is audience different on Google Ads compared to maybe some of the other ad systems and ad platforms that you use. What things do you have to think about your audience before you run a campaign? We're going to be looking at obviously keywords. So what keywords are, how they're the difference between those and search terms, things to think about when coming up with keywords, and some tactics to put in place to help you come up with the most effective keywords. We're going to be talking about how much do I spend? So, and this is the $1 million question in terms of how much do I spend? Unfortunately, I won't be able to give you an exact answer, but I've got some ideas and some tips about actually how to work out your ad spend and things like that. So that should be helpful. We're going to talk about campaign structure, a little bit of a brief. It's your first campaign, you're thinking about running it. How do I actually set this thing up? What is the kind of systems I need to put in place? And this structure, I break that down a little bit for you, just to give you an idea of things to think about beforehand. Art and science of writing for ads, and it really is an art and a science when it comes to Google search ads. So I'm going to give you some tips about how to things to think about when it comes to ads, when it comes to actually putting the words together and actually how they're formulated to make sure you're getting them as effective as possible. We'll be looking at landing page, so making sure that your landing page is ready, because what you don't want to be doing is writing great ads, great keywords, and then when it gets to the landing page, people don't convert and they don't become ultimately customers and don't sign up for what you want. So there's some things about how landing page is really important as part of Google Ads. And then finally, I'm going to talk about some of the metrics. So just go through, you run your first campaign, what are some of the key metrics you need to be looking at? So that's kind of an overview of what we're going to be doing. So why would you use Google Ads at all? Well, Google Ads is a brilliant digital marketing tool. It's really effective for one of the reasons is you're getting a warmer audience. So with Google Ads, people are often using the Google search engine and it's more intent based. They are going there themselves. It's not like with social ads where you're building a picture from their general interest and then putting an ad in front of them. You know the person is going there to search for that particular thing. So that's straight away, you've got a potentially warmer audience in comparison to other ad platforms with Google, because you know they are searching and at that time they are looking for that specific thing. So that's the first reason why you want to be using Google Ads. You also, if you're looking at going to search ads, you want to be looking at using Google Ads because it's the most widely used search engine. 87% of all search engine traffic comes through Google Ads. So if you're starting out, it's where the majority of the chances your customers and your potential audience are going to be on Google Ads. So you want to be there for that reason. And because it's the biggest and it's the most advanced, that money gets reinvested into the Google Ads platform itself, which then creates the best platform, which means you get the best targeting. The AI is much better at trying to understand the actual intent of someone actually, what they're actually trying to achieve with their search. So that's another reason why you want to be using Google Ads, because it's just the best ad platform out of all the search ad platforms, because there are other ones like Bing and DuckDuckGo, but they've just not quite got the same advancement in terms of technology than Google Ads has. It's great as well for quickly changing your budget. Sort of more traditional advertising in newspapers, once it's gone and it's launched, that's it. You spent the budget and it's gone and you just got to hope that it happens. Google Ads, you can tweak things, you can tweak different things across it. You can look at trends that are happening with searches. There can be external things that are happening in the world, and that can then shift your ad budget. And you can do it very quickly on Google Ads as well. So it gives you a lot more control over your ad budget. And finally, I think this is a point that's not always mentioned, because with Google search ads, you've got quite limited characters. It's an opportunity to really nail down your business message. What am I actually selling? What am I trying to achieve with this? And it can really make you reevaluate your own website copy. It can really make you reevaluate your own business messaging, because you've really got to get it sharp and clean in these search ads. So what is PPC? It means pay-per-click. So basically, Google Ads has different things. So there are some which is pay-per-click, which basically means you're paying only when somebody clicks on the ad. Whereas there are other things in Google Ads search where you can pay for a certain amount of impressions. But for this particular webinar, we're going to be focusing on the pay-per-click aspect. So pay-per-click works. I'll go through it very quickly now in terms of Google. You put your Google search query in. So you may be asking for, I don't know, a new oven or something. And then it will then go to an advertising pool. So you have all your competitors all going in, bidding for that particular keyword, and Google does its thing, says, right, that keyword matches that matches that matches that. And then it goes into an auction. And there's two factors really that you want to be thinking about right now. There is one, which is obviously the bid. So whoever bids the most, but that's not always the one that's guaranteed to get to the top. It's also quality score, which is, I'll talk about later, but which includes a lot about your ad relevance and the quality of your landing page. So those two things go into consideration. So it's good to know that, for example, if you set up saying, I want to spend £7 to get that click, and your competition says they want to spend £5 for that click, if you win the auction to get your ad right at the top, you won't be paying £7. You'll pay a penny more than the second highest bid. And it's important to know that in terms of when you're setting your bids. So that's what pay-per-click is. So first of all, defining your audience. So how do you define your audience on Google Ads? Well, it goes without saying that you need to have an idea of where they are. Where do you do business? Where are your customers actually going to be? So as you can see on the example there, this is a campaign we're running at the moment. We've chosen some of the counties that are specifically around Cambridgeshire, and you can focus in at regional level, national level, international level. There is so much you can do in terms of specific locations. It's also with the radius. You could also pinpoint a specific point on the map, and you'll have a circular thing you would see come out in the system. And that could be 10 kilometers, 25 kilometers, whatever you feel you need to reach as a tool that you can use. So there's so many targeting options when it comes to location. What I've got in terms of, you can see the target thing there where it talks about target your audience. You get 3 options with your audience when you're thinking about where is the location. Firstly, you've got people in or who show an interest in your targeted locations. Now, Google often recommends that. That's for people that live in the actual area of where you're doing business and where you want to target. But it also is people that might be business commuters that come in and they're just in the area. So Google knows they're doing searches within that area. They might not necessarily live there. If you're a local business that needs to be focused on just residents, you'll want to be doing the next one, which is people in or regularly in your targeted locations, because that's really more focused on residents that live there. So bricks and mortar business is in there, and you know how far realistically people are going to come to your organization. That's the best option for that. And finally, you've got the people searching for your targeted location. If I have a hotel in Cornwall, I don't want to be advertising to people who live in Cornwall because they're not going to come to my hotel. What I would do is I would be targeting people beyond that and making sure that it's people that are just searching for Cornwall related to holidays and actually coming to be there. So more holiday companies would use the people searching for targeted location. I'll talk quickly about, there's 2 things in Google Ads which are quite useful. There's one which is called in-market audience. So imagine your search history. If I'm looking for, say, a washing machine, my search history would be no searches, no searches, no searches. And then all of a sudden in 1 month, there's a massive spike because my washing machine broke down and I need to get a new one. So there's clearly, and then afterwards, there's no searches, no searches, no searches. So Google uses it and thinks, well, he's clearly not interested in washing machines, but he's in the market to buy washing machines, because once I've been in that period, I won't be searching for washing machines, hopefully, for the next 5 years. So that's the in-market audience. That's people that are specifically not necessarily interested in your product on a more general basis, but they're just specifically in the market for it. And the other one is affinity audiences, which is much more general. So if you're interested, for example, science and technology, you might think, well, my clients are probably going to be interested in science and technology if you're selling some laboratory equipment or things like that. It's likely they're going to be searching for other things, maybe scientific reports. So Google looks at it and goes, on a monthly basis, they are searching for things related to science and technology. So we will put them in an affinity audience. Myself, I've had this with, I search for maybe gym equipment, maybe some football equipment. I would then be under a sports affinity audience. Now, there is a slight caveat to that, because I've been getting ads, believe it or not, when I was listening to my podcast, I'm getting ads for golfing ads. Now, I don't play golf, but because I'm in the affinity audience for sport, they might be showing to me for that. So there can be sometimes where it's not as targeted with affinity. So when you're using affinity, be careful. But again, it's just something to be aware that you can use in the platform. Okay, so that's the audience. So audience, think about your location. Think about your in-market, think about, are people in the market, or are they generally more interested in my product? And that's the in-market and affinity audience. Let's go to the next one. Keywords. Keywords are the function of Google Ads search. It's fundamentally, it is the thing you search. But there is a slight caveat. So keywords are what you would set up your Google Ads account with. You would be doing your keyword research, which I'll explain a little bit in a while. You would then run those keywords, and that's the thing you do. Search terms are for what is actually searched. So search term is the term that triggers the actual keyword. So for example, how to write a blog article would be, as you can see there, but that the keyword I could be how to write a blog article, but the search term could be how to write a blog article in 10 steps, for example. But so the search term is slightly different to the keyword, but it's close enough that it triggers the keyword to run the ad. So it's just an important distinction to make with the difference between keywords and search terms. When you're coming up with your keywords, you've got basically 2. Now, there's two keywords. I hate the name of one of them because it just sounds horrible, but it's what they call it. You've got fathead keywords, which are very short keywords, which are one or two. So, for example, shoes would be considered a fathead keyword. It's a lot of high volume because it's just a very simple, easy kind of keyword to try and rank for, but it's very competitive. Whereas a long tail keyword would be something like high heel shoes, size 11. So you can see the difference. It's just a much more detailed use of the long tail keyword. And the difference really is that the fathead keywords are very much at the more competitive, you've got lots more competition, and they tend to cost more. If you can focus on specific items, example like the high heel shoes, size 11s, they can be a lot cheaper. But the thing is, you don't get as much actual search volume to those terms. So it's just a kind of understanding the difference between those two. Now we're going to talk about search intent. Google Ads is moving away from just the basic keywords, because in the old days, you could just keyword stuff, articles, and you get away with it. The whole Google system is so much smarter than that now. So it's much more about intent. And you know this because it's changed from Google AdWords to Google Ads. The intent with the AI development within the Google Ads system, the search intent is more important. They want to know that they're meeting the expectations of the searcher. So a great example is this article on the side. You can see how to write a blog article. This is a brilliant example of it working. You see the ads, I write blogs that wow, how to write a blog. That's what I've asked for. What I've not asked for is professional writers. What I've not asked for is copywriters, for example, at Sookio as well, when we're doing similar things. It's actually the intent is I want to understand how to write a blog article. I don't want to be sold things in that moment. So it's very easy to think, well, they want to know how to write a blog article, so let's put an ad in front. Google will hate it because it won't have the same relevance. So you really think about that. What is the actual intent of my of the searcher who's looking for your specific products or services, rather than thinking it's just one thing. So the way I think it is, there are kind of three different types of search kind of reasons really why someone's going to be searching. Firstly, there's informational. So the how to write a blog article is an informational search term. You've got transactional. So if I was saying professional writers required, that would be a transactional because I'm specifically calling out for a service. And then you might have a navigational, which is much more your brand. So I'm specifically putting in, say, I'll do a Sookio plug. I put in Sookio because I know if I knew the brand and I knew the organization, I put that in. I'm just trying to find out where Sookio are, where the organization is. That's a much more navigational one. You have to trust that the searcher knows what they want. For me, Google Ads, it's so easy to try and almost game the system to think, well, if I just put a thing about a copywriter here because someone's trying to find a blog article, it doesn't work. It's not the way Google's going. And as Google develops even further, it's getting further away from that because its entire business model is based on delivering the best user experience. And if I go on Google and don't get what I want, then I'm not going to keep using Google. So it's kind of the future of the business relies on the way it's going. Just a quick brief on the keyword planners. When you're setting up your campaign, you're thinking, well, I want to look at keywords. Think about your business, and you can use the keyword planner. It's a tool within the actual Google Ads platform. I won't go into too much detail now, but it's a really good platform. It shows you the average monthly search for that particular keyword. So how many searches was that keyword coming up? So that's a useful insight. I think, is it worth running an ad for that? If it's not high enough, it's low volume. It shows you the trend of the actual keyword. So are more people searching for it over a 6-month period? I did some research for an economic consultant, and that was exactly that. We found since the issues around the economy, there's been an increase in search terms looking for economic consultancy and economic professionals to help kind of help plan for the future. So you actually can see that's really useful, and it gives you an indication on the cost of the keywords. Keywords versus search terms. Remember, keywords are what you set as what goes in. Search terms are what people are actually searching that triggers the keyword. It's a slight difference, but it is important when you're thinking. Your search terms, there's another tool which I would jot down if you're thinking about using Google Ads. It's called the Search Terms Report. You find it in your Google Ads when you're running campaigns, and it actually tells you, here's the keyword that I was running, and here's the actual search term that triggered that keyword. And it's really useful because you can find new keywords in there. So that's kind of with keywords versus search terms. So yeah, so just think about what is the intent? What is the person who's writing that into Google? What do they actually want to achieve? And then use the keyword planner. Carrying on from keywords, there are 4 types of keywords that basically give you certain control over when you want the ads to run on certain keywords. So for example, quite broad, you'd have IT training. So this means it would show for any search term that included IT or training. So anytime something came up that had the word IT in, or someone put search and that had training in, it could show. Now, Google is getting smarter at this, and if you just put training, it wouldn't show an ad for IT training that was, for example, fitness training, because again, the system would probably know it's not relevant. But you could come up for anything related to computers training or any electronic training, for example, that has no relevance. That's the first one. Then you've got phrase match. Phrase match is cheap IT training. As long as it's together in the sentence, when you're the searcher, cheap IT training, that would run your ad. Quality IT training would run your ad. But IT cheap training would not, because IT and training are separated by the word cheap. So under a phrase match, it wouldn't actually run it. So again, it gives you more control over the keywords that you've set up, but your search traffic will go down because you're just tightening up in terms of what you'll accept. The exact match is where it literally is IT training or any particular spelling mistake. So as you can see, I've spelled IT training wrong there. Google will know you're trying to write IT training. It's the ultimate control, but you really do need a good volume of monthly searches to make it work, because if it's that's when it really starts to tighten in terms of search. So it's just to think about those things. So with broad being quite broad, Google came up with broad match modified, which is where you can guarantee that IT and training would both feature in the search, but they might not necessarily have to be together like they would in phrase match. So it's like a broad match safety spell. It's something you'll think about when you're actually setting up your keywords. Now, the all important question, how much do you spend? It's a difficult one because it's so industry based, it's so time of the year. There are so many factors that go into it. How many searches are going on, how competitive, how big the advertiser pool of money and the auction itself is building the cost of ads when you happen to want to run your ads. But what you can do is try and work out how much it is worth getting that click to your business. So I'll give an example. If you were to get 500 clicks at £2 each, that means you've spent £1,000 in a month. So you get in 1 month, you've managed, your ad has generated 500 clicks to your website, and they cost you £2 each. If you then took those 500 clicks out of those 500 people that went through to your website, you're probably looking at 2% of those will probably turn into customers on average. Again, that varies depending on the quality of the landing page. But for this, we'll say 2%. That means out of 500, 10 people would actually turn into customers. So you've spent £1,000, you've got 10 customers through the door. That means each customer cost you £100 to become a customer. And the question you've got to ask yourself is that worth it? If you're selling a product for £50, absolutely not. You're just wasting your money throwing it at ads. But if you're selling a product that's £10,000, I think £100 to get a customer in seems quite fair. So that's the kind of equation you'll want to use to do. And I can send that on with a bit more information in our chat afterwards. It can get quite detailed, but it's a very basic way of thinking. You need to work out how much your customer's worth before you start working out your ad budget, because you don't want to think, well, I'll just spend £100 initially, but I want to get £50,000 worth of business. It's just not realistic. That return on ad spend is off the scale, and it's just not realistic. So that's kind of working out. Manual versus automated are going to keep this very kind of things. It can get a bit technical, so I'm trying to avoid that. So you have 2 bidding options. You have manual, where basically you do it yourself. You control everything, the budget, you control where the money goes, where the bids go, everything. And then you've got automated, also known as smart bidding, where you let Google take over in certain areas. They guide things. So you've got a lot more options for smart bidding. So you've got example, maximize clicks, which means Google will say, great, I'm going to try and get as many clicks as possible. But for me, if you're just starting out on Google Ads, go manual. It's much more control. There's no risk of it going out. And when you're running a smaller campaign, it's just so much easier to manage. Smart bidding is very good when you're thinking about, you've got a bigger campaign. If your ads are built up and your ad groups are built, it can be very, very useful. to just manage it, because naturally the one downside to manual is the potential for human error. So that's why when campaigns get bigger, you want to be running with manual. And obviously, we all know about the digital marketing funnel. There's kind of raising awareness, showing value, and then you've got that final point, which is the actual purchase at the conversion point. Google Ads can be good at the knowledge and value level, the middle level, and the sort of bottom level where you're really converting. Majority of budget wants to be going on the conversion part because you want warm audiences who you know are doing it. But actually, like the example I said before around how to write a blog article, could be a great way of getting your name out there as an organization that has the expertise. If you've got a blog that says exactly that, share that. It shows your expertise, it shows you know what you're talking about, and it increases your brand awareness. Okay, these guys know what they're talking about. And then if they wanted to do something further, they could then, when they're next looking for professional writers, your ad will come up and they'll know you from the fact they've read your blog. So it can be used at those two different levels, but your majority of budget wants to be at the conversion, and it's more expensive the further you get down the funnel. It can get quite confusing, but it's just giving you a real snapshot and things to think about. So with how much do you spend, really return on ad spend, how much are you willing to spend to get that click? Think about that. Manually setting the bids or doing it smart, and that's Google themselves. I think if it's your first campaign, go manual because you get the control. Start small, and then think about what stage the customer's at on their customer journey online.
Clark, I'm going to ask you a quick question. I'm going to ask you something about the spend. So say if you decide at the beginning of the campaign you want to spend 500, how often can you change that throughout? Can you change it every day? Are you fixed? Does Google say, sorry, tough, you've decided to spend this much? Or could you find out, well, actually, if things are working, you could increase it? Or what's your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it's the beauty of Google Ads, Sue, is that you can change it. You could change it hourly if you wanted to. I don't advise changing it hourly because you want to give some of the changes you've made to actually take an impact. But yeah, you can change it on an hourly basis. I think a weekly basis is a good idea to really look and think, okay, I'm spending enough. Is my budget actually getting used? So yeah, you can change that. And I think in terms of saying, if you've got £500 to spend, you can think about different ways of spending it. Do you want to try and get the data early? So you might spend more of it at the start to try and build up a picture, or you may want to just be consistent and say, no, I want to spend £10 a day. And if you feel there are certain keywords thinking, wow, that keyword's really driving conversions, I'm going to increase the amount of budget specifically on that. And I think that comes to my point about manual. When you're first starting off, it can be, I don't want Google doing too much straight away. It's nothing against the automated system. It's just because they don't have the data. Whereas you can manually build it up and feel comfortable that money's not being spent where you're not sure. That's my kind of idea with that, is use manual to help control that. Then you can do all the little changes, and manual changes will happen instantly. So straight away, your budget will come down. You haven't got to wait. Whereas with smart bidding, it takes a little bit longer. It could take a couple of days. So
yeah, because we've worked with a few people, haven't we, where they've experimented with Google Ads and LinkedIn at the same time. And then they've thought, actually, LinkedIn's not doing so much. So we'll move all of that budget over to Google Ads. And then, like you're saying, it's all about experimenting with the data and then shifting things around, which is good.
Absolutely, yeah. It's using data. One of the great things about the ads, you get data in a way you don't with some of the more traditional advertising. So that's a key thing. Don't be afraid to spend a little bit of money to just get data, because it will save you a lot of money later on. Okay, so now we've talked about all those different things. Campaign structure. So, and this is a very basic way of setting it out, but it's the way I would kind of initially set out your campaign when you're setting it up in Google Ads. So at the top, you've got the campaign, and you can see on my right-hand side the different things that you would put into your campaign. So, for example, if you were running a training, you had a training part of your business, and you wanted to run that as a campaign, you'd put things like your location, your languages. So if it's international, you want to put some more languages in. You would set your budget at campaign level, so you know that you're not going to be spending more than that per day. With Google Ads, you could potentially spend more each day, but it aggregates itself over a month. So one day you might spend £7.50 if you've got a £5 a day budget, but across the month, it will work out as the equivalent of £5 a day. So Google Ads is quite smart. So you'll set up different things around, and you can start your end dates. I tend not to do end dates. I tend to just run the campaign and then stop it when we feel it's finished. So now you've got your campaign. Say you're doing an example, you've got a training course. At the ad group level, you want to be separating those courses. So you might have one course for IT training. You might have one course for business development. You might have one course for electronics training. It's really important to differentiate those sections for your business. The reason why you want to do that is because you want to make sure that the next level of the campaign ads are relevant to that. What you don't want, for example, is an ad group where you've got exactly that. You've got your campaign course and your ad group is electronics course, IT training course, and business development course, all running to the same ad. Because for at least two of those, it's not going to be relevant and it's really difficult to write ads. So if you split them up into specific services or specific courses, for example, on this one, it means that you know your ads are going to be so much more relevant, which is going to so much more increase the likelihood of getting clicks. And that then comes on to ads. So the ads themselves, again, the key is make them relevant. So we'll call this the art and science of ads. Firstly, you absolutely have to make your ad relevant to what the person is actually what they're searching for, and Google won't show it if it's not relevant. And secondly, it's making sure that the ad is relevant to the landing page, which I'll talk about in a sec. So make sure your ad is relevant. So you can see here, I did a search earlier on for plumbers near me. The first ad is local plumbing services. Brilliant. That's great. That's exactly what I've asked for. Plumbers near me, a local plumbing service. The other one, I think there's some issues around location with what they've done, because if that's local Coventry plumbers, I'm not based in Coventry. Again, that's just an example there of making sure you're getting it right. It's good enough to run, but is it really what I asked for? Plumbers near me? Probably not. Whereas the first one is very much more about that. Think about your headlines as well. Your headline has to have your keyword. The keyword is in that headline, because it's absolutely crucial to have it in there, because people, unfortunately, might not read all of your ad, even the nice descriptive bit, which you can see, for example, under the engineering consulting service. I literally wrote in engineering consultants, and that was the ad that came up. Brilliant. Tells me exactly what I've asked for. That's exactly what you want. I probably wouldn't have read all of the description, but straight away I know that you've got engineering consulting service. So think about that when you're coming up with your ad. Make sure that the headline has a relevance to the keyword. It's absolutely crucial. When people are using Google Ads, and often they're using it on their mobiles, they're checking Google and doing a search, they won't have time to read all the description. They might be doing something else, but what they will read is the headline. So absolutely make sure that's linking to the keyword. You can try and be as creative as you want, but if you don't put in that keyword, it's not going to get the same clicks, because it just doesn't meet the searcher's expectations. So get to the point as well, really kind of punchy in terms of make sure you're saying exactly what you want to say about the ads, exactly what you want the searcher to know. Don't try and be too fancy, don't try and be too much with the language, be really economic with your language, get across the points that are actually going to make it. It's unfortunately, you're limited in creativity, but I do think it focuses the mind in terms of the size of the actual ads. Then you've got ad extensions. So as you can see, you've got the contact us under this engineering consulting service one, and you've got the our work. Now these are called ad extensions. These particular ones are called site extensions. So these will take you to a separate URL compared to the top one. So if I was to click on the engineering consulting service, that would take me to that page. Whereas with the site extensions, you can add contact us and our work. So think about if you've got other interesting potential things. If you might have a guide that you want to promote as part of this as well, and have it as here's our work, show your expertise through that. So site extensions can be a really useful one. Also with these extensions, you have something called call extensions. Now call extensions are brilliant, because if you were, say, a local restaurant and they're searching on their mobile for a local restaurant in the area, and you have a call extension, they can literally just ring you straight away and they can book. And you want to make it as easy as possible for the searcher to use your business with something like that. So if you're a local restaurant or something like that, put in call extension, which actually just has your number, it links to it, it'll come up on your mobile, and boom, straight away you've made it easy. You haven't even had to necessarily go to the website, which is great. When you're setting up your ads in Google Ads, you'll have a couple of different types. You'll have three. There's responsive ads, and there's text ads, and there is expanded ads. So text ads are general text. You get one ad, you get two headlines, and that's what you set up. And that doesn't change. That content stays the same all the time. You have expanded ads, which allows you to have three potential headlines, and then that gives you a bit more in terms of description, and it can be very good for mobile optimization. And then finally, you have responsive ads. Now, this is where you put in I think it's seven or eight headlines within the actual program. You have two descriptions, which is this bit here, and Google will mix it up, try different things to see what works. It can be useful to find out what your content is working best. So they're the three that you can use from a search perspective. You've got responsive, expanded, and text. But I won't go into too much detail, but it's just something to consider when setting them up. Oh, and finally on that one, sorry, the ad design itself. Just think about that. Google are always tweaking the ad designs, and ultimately, look now. The word ad, they want it to look organic. They don't want it to look like it's different. So when you're actually writing your ad content, don't be too bolshy. Don't be too kind of extravagant, because people will know it's an ad, which means they're less likely to click on it. People just naturally, I think, trust the organic search results more than they do the ads. So don't go out of your way to make it look even more like an ad. If anything, you want to try and make it look more like the organic search. And this is what Google wants you to do. It wants you to be more like the organic searches, with the kind of headlines that say what the search is, and then maybe a little bit of creative on the other side of the headline. Just think about that, how it's designing it. For example, the mobile screen, when you've got your mobile now, if you put a Google search in, it's almost entirely ads. Before you have to scroll down. If I know it looks like an ad, people are less likely to click on it. So don't be careful with your tone of your ads as well. Landing pages, really important. So what is a landing page? Basically it's the URL that your ad is going to send the person who clicks to. Basically, that's what it is. So whatever it is, it's going to be the page with your services, your products, whatever on. That is what a landing page is. It's the ad that the actual ad URL will take me to. First of all, has to be relevant. Really important that your landing page is relevant to the ad. When I click on an ad and I see a certain service, I don't want to get to a landing page that isn't relevant to what I've actually searched for, and it isn't relevant to the ad that I've clicked on, because straight away I'm coming off. And it's important to remember that you're still paying for that. You've paid for that because someone's clicked on it. It's cost you money. So you want to make sure that your landing page is as relevant as possible to the ad itself. In terms of content, there's kind of two aspects to this when you're using Google Ads. It really depends on the value of the product or service. So if you're selling something quite cheap, if you're selling event tickets that might be 20, 30 pounds, you're probably going to expect to purchase quite quick after someone's clicked on the actual ad. So you'd expect to go to a page that you can just sign up to, maybe like the one you can see there, very quick, very sharp, easy to do. If you're doing more of a B2B ad, so your service might be for example, an infrastructure contract or something like this, some big thing that they're looking for expertise, or engineering, as we spoke about. Just to simply send someone to a contact page is not going to work. They're going to need much more priming to get into that, to them to contact you. So this is where brilliant copywriting comes in terms of landing page. I need it to go through a whole list of reasons as to why I should do this, the benefits. That ad needs to take them on a journey to when they get to the landing page. A great example was, I saw a course on a thing I follow is Social Media Examiner, and they're doing a course for Google Analytics. So I just clicked on it, went through to it, and it was a lot of content, but it's because the course was costing over £1,000, I think it was. That's because that's not a decision I'm just going to make easy. That's a decision I'm going to need priming for. So your content has to take them on a journey, keep them interested, and make them think that actually I really do need this. Actually thinking about it, I can see all the value of it. No one's just really going to just fill out a contact form generally, I don't think, from just a £20,000 product, for example. It's just not going to happen. You need to be giving content, which is the absolute why copywriting of your ads is so important when it comes to your landing page. The content has to be focused and taking the potential person who is already primed, they've clicked the ad, brilliant, and get them in, draw them in even more with the bigger value item. Page speed, massively important. If you're loading page speed is slow, that's really going to punish you in terms of ranking factor anyway on Google, but also it adds your quality score will go down, which I'll talk about in the next slide. Really important part is your page speed. Make sure that your page loads fast. Make sure there's not lots of code that's taking a bit of time to up kind of grade. Need to make sure that your page is nice and quick and it loads quick. It's also a really important point to think about with page speed is if you're international business. So if you're an international business, think about the different areas of the world. We've worked with clients where this has been the case. If you've got a landing page with lots of video embedded in it, lots of images that are over the top, you're maybe using a content management system that's quite complicated, that's all going to add to the loading time of the page. And if you're in maybe certain parts of the world, but internet is not as strong, is not as fast, it's not as high quality as other parts of the world, that's going to make it even more difficult to get the landing page loaded in those countries. So do think about where in the world am I also doing it. So you might want to create different landing pages for specific different parts of the world that might be simpler, that allow it to load, because some parts of the world, they use 3G, for example, on mobile still quite generally. Well, if your page has got lots of stuff in, that's going to really struggle to load and Google's going to hate it. So just think about that as well when you're thinking about your page speed. And that fits into the mobile first. It's exactly that. It's mobile. Now, Google is being primed. It's been designed to be made for mobile. Desktop is still an important market, but now it's taken over. Mobile is becoming more searches are happening on mobile. So in the areas, particularly of the world as well, where mobile internet use and 3G is much more higher, don't make your web page so complicated that it's going to impact your quality score. Which brings us beautifully to metrics. Now, metrics, there are loads of metrics, but I'm going to focus on 3 that you would look at if it was your first ever campaign you're running. Firstly, click-through rate. So your click-through rate is the percentage of people who saw your ad that actually clicked on it. So of all the people that actually saw the ad, it's the amount of people that actually took the action, the percentage of those people that actually took the action to click on it. And it's a really important, to me, it's the fundamental Google Ads metric, because that's what you want. My job when I'm creating ads is to get people to click on them. So I need to know that rate is higher because that's my job. That's what we do. That is the aim of your ad, is to get people to click on it first and foremost. Then you've got conversion rate. So conversion rate on Google Ads, you can set up tracking, conversion tracking, which allows you to say, for example, you wanted to set up a conversion tracking where you say, right, I want to, if it's a thank you page, after somebody has signed up to something, I want to track the URL for the thank you page. By doing that, you can say, well, I know that those ads that it clicked through, 2% of those people that got through to the website went on to sign up to that event or to buy that product. And I've seen it because the conversion rate in the thank you page. It can be really useful because it gives you an indication of actually how effective your landing page is. Because if you're getting high click-through rate, it probably means your ads are really good. But if you're getting low conversion rate, it means your landing page isn't doing its job. So again, really important thing, because it's making sure that your conversion rate is higher so you know your landing page is doing better. And then finally, in terms of this, quality score is really important. It gets more important the longer you run them for. So to me, Google Ads, you want to make it intrinsically part of your digital marketing. You can run campaigns, but it takes a lot of budget because you don't have the data initially. So to me, Google Ads is a long-term thinking product. It's not something that you want to be just thinking, we'll do a couple of weeks here and then leave it for 6 months and do it again. It's much more, your quality score will build over time. And quality score takes in consideration the 3 factors you can see on there. You've got landing page quality, so things like page speed, the technical SEO, how does it load? What's the user experience like? The ad relevance. Is the relevance of the ad that I've created relevant to the search that someone's put in? Again, think that's really important for quality score. And then the click-through rate. Google says, well, if it's getting clicked on, it must be a good ad. It must be relevant. Quality score is really important because it actually impacts cost. So if you can get your quality score up, that can be a really, really beneficial thing for you because it actually can reduce your cost. So you could technically be spending less than somebody else, but your quality score is better. Google will put your ad above them. So quality score is absolutely paramount. A couple of ways to improve quality score is to think about the actual campaign structure. So when you're developing your campaign structure, you're thinking, actually, have I divided my services right? Which then means, is your ad relevant to those services? Think about the ad content itself. Test different things, try different content. Is that why my quality scores? Because is my ad not good enough? Which is why people aren't clicking on it. There's a number of things you can try on those things. So that's me. Generally, that is stopgap, 100%. Just go at whistle stop tour of Google Ads. I was going to talk about a little bit a bonus because it's Christmas about display ads, but I'm not going to go into that now because I'm obviously conscious of time. But if you did want to book in a call tomorrow to have a chat tomorrow afternoon, my diary is completely free. So yeah, that's it for me, Sue.